Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are taking a deep dive into, well, one of the most talked about and, frankly, sometimes head-scratching relationships out there.
Yeah,
The one between Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
definitely. And you've shared a really fascinating source with us. It steps away from the usual, political or business takes.
Yeah, it looks at their dynamic through a very different lens,
Mm,
astrological analysis.
that's right. The source material frames their whole interaction as a kind of psychological drama. It claims to get insights, even predictions, straight from their birth charts and the planet's current movements.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to really get into this specific astrological analysis from your source. We want to understand what it claims is driving their current back and forth.
Right.
And importantly, what this particular view, from the stars suggests might happen next with their connection. It's definitely a unique angle.
Absolutely. And this kind of analysis, as the source lays it out, it really starts with the basics. Looking at the individual birth charts, you can think of these in this framework as maps of personality, potential.
Like a blueprint
Yeah.
captured at birth.
Exactly,
Yeah.
the individual blueprint. So let's start with Elon Musk. The source gives his birthday, June 28, 1971, Pretoria, South Africa, supposedly 7 a.m.
Right.
And using that, the source notes his sun, ascendant, and moon signs are Cancer, Cancer, and Virgo. Now, you might hear that and think, okay, gentle, caring.
Right.
But the analysis insists the astrological reality, looking deeper into his chart, is quite different from that first impression.
Okay, so where does the analysis say we find the real core of his nature then? Not just those signs.
This is where it gets really interesting, according to the source. It points to these key astrological aspects formed right at his birth.
Yeah.
His sun is square Uranus, and his ascendant is also square Uranus.
Okay, hold on. For those of us maybe not fluent in astrology, what does a square mean here, according to the source? And the ascendant, what's that again?
Good question. So in this framework, a square aspect basically represents tension, or a challenge between the energies of the planets involved.
Okay, tension.
And the ascendant, or rising sign, that's sort of how you present yourself to the world, your initial reactions.
Mm-hmm.
So having both your core self, the sun, and your outward personality, the ascendant, squared by Uranus,
Uranus being the planet of
rebellion, innovation, sudden change, it creates this powerful, often disruptive energy. The source specifically calls this combination his wild card.
wild card,
Yeah.
okay? And what does the source say this wild card energy actually means for how Musk operates?
Well, it gets right to what the source sees as fundamental.
Okay.
He simply cannot take orders.
Cannot take orders.
The analysis says nobody can tell him what to do. He's extremely sensitive about his personal freedom, independence, autonomy. The source uses the phrase, a self-made man in the purest form.
That definitely sounds like the public persona.
Yeah.
And the source links this to why he goes against the grain, innovates, resists authority.
Exactly. That's the explanation offered. The analysis also notes his sun is in the 12th house.
The 12th house.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that, according to the source?
Well, the 12th house is often linked with isolation, the subconscious, things hidden or worked through alone. So the source interprets his sun, his core identity, being there as making him a lonely wolf.
A lonely wolf. Interesting. Suggests he operates best independently, maybe behind the scenes sometimes.
That's the idea, working outside the pack.
Okay, so that's the picture of his core nature.
Mhm.
What about right now? Are current planetary movements affecting him much, according to the source?
The source notes that his current transits, that's, the planets moving now, interacting with his birth chart, they aren't dramatically hitting his natal chart yet.
Okay.
He has some harmonious aspects from Neptune and Saturn going on, but the analysis points to something coming up.
Oh.
In a few months, Uranus will make a conjunction with his Saturn in his birth chart. A conjunction is when they line up, merge energies.
Right.
And the source predicts this specific conjunction will significantly impact his relationships over the next year.
Okay, so something to watch for down the line in his relationships. Now, the analysis shifts to Donald Trump's chart. The source mentioned something about points in his chart resonating with Musk's progressive chart.
Yes, exactly. The progressive chart reflects inner growth over time, and the source notes Musk's progressive sun and moon have moved into Leo.
And that connects to Trump.
It connects to Trump's own major placements in Leo. The source highlights his natal. Mars and ascendant are both in Leo.
Mars and ascendant in Leo. Mars is action, energy. Leo is leadership, performance.
Right. Fiery, prominent energy. So key parts of his drive and presentation are in that sign.
And what's the source's view on Trump's current astrological situation?
It's described in one word, Exceptionally volatile.
Exceptionally volatile. Okay. What specific transits create that picture, according to this analysis?
The analysis points right to Mars. The Mars moving through the sky right now is set to transit or hit Trump's natal Mars in his birth chart. In the next 4 to 5 days, based on when the article was written, this Mars-on-Mars alignment, the source says, creates extremely dynamic and potentially explosive energy.
Explosive energy. How might that actually show up, according to the source?
Well, it could be negative, intense arguments, confrontation, aggression, or, more constructively, it could manifest as strong assertiveness, maybe the power to push things through. But then, adding to that,
There's more.
yeah, Mars hits his ascendant about a week later. The source says that just amplifies those impulsive reactions, how he projects that energy.
So a really concentrated period of intense, maybe confrontational Mars energy for him.
Yeah.
What else is contributing to this volatility?
The source also mentions the approaching full moon. It's apparently hitting Trump's moon and opposing his sun.
Okay, full moons are usually intense times, right?
Right.
Culminations.
Exactly. And this one interacting directly with his core emotional self, the moon, and his identity, the sun. Well, the analysis suggests he's on the verge of burning out.
Burning out.
Possibly having fuses blowing, facing extreme difficulty keeping his tongue in check. That's the language used.
Wow. So just a lot of intense, kind of conflicting energy seems to be converging in his chart right now, based on this source.
That's definitely the conclusion the analysis draws. It also mentions Uranus finishing a conjunction with his midheaven, that's career, public status.
Right.
And Jupiter preparing a sextile, a helpful aspect with his ascendant. But overall, the source concludes this mix makes it very difficult for Trump to maintain a stable course currently.
And the source connects that astrological instability directly to his public actions. You know, he's everywhere, as they say.
Precisely. Seeing his maybe fluctuating decisions as a manifestation of these temporary, large energy swings described in the chart.
Okay, that's a fascinating look at their individual charts and the current planetary weather, so to speak.
Yeah.
But how does this analysis bring them together? What about the relationship itself?
Right. That's where the composite chart comes in, as described by the source. It's not just overlaying their charts.
Yep.
No, it's like creating a brand new chart for the relationship. You find the mathematical midpoint between each of their planets, like his sun and Trump's sun, his moon and Trump's moon, and so on.
Okay.
And that composite chart, according to this approach, represents the relationship's unique energy, its own entity almost.
A chart for the relationship itself. Interesting. What's the most significant thing the source points out in their composite chart?
The absolute key placement highlighted is their composite sun. It's located at 29 degrees Gemini.
29 degrees Gemini. Why is that specific degree important right now?
This is the crux of it, according to the source. Transit Jupiter, the planet of expansion, growth, optimism, currently moving through the sky, is also at 29 degrees Gemini right now.
So Jupiter's right on top of their relationship's sun.
Exactly. According to the source's timing when it was written, Jupiter was set to pass exactly over their composite sun in the next 48 to 72 hours.
Wow.
The source emphasizes this is an exceptionally significant moment astrologically for their relationship dynamic.
Exceptionally significant. Because Jupiter, the planet of more, is hitting the very core of their shared chart. What's the energy of Jupiter like, according to the source's description?
Well, Jupiter is typically seen as bringing joy, growth, optimism, hope. Good stuff, right? Sounds positive.
But the source adds a caution. It describes Jupiter as a gas giant with no solid substance, meaning it often promises more than it can deliver.
Okay.
It's seen as always being a bit over the top, exaggerated, bring a lot of hype, a lot of energy, but maybe not always solid, lasting results.
So this potentially overblown, optimistic, but maybe not entirely solid energy is hitting the core identity of their relationship right now.
Precisely. And the source concludes that this specific Jupiter energy influencing the relationship between these two extremely powerful personalities is what's creating the current intense, unpredictable psychological drama we're seeing play out.
The drama.
Yeah. The analysis even likens the intensity of it all to a Mission Impossible movie. A Mission Impossible movie? I think a lot of people watching would probably nod along with that description lately. It does feel pretty high stakes and dramatic.
And the source makes the point that while this might be, quote, pure entertainment for observers, it's also an unsettling reality for those affected by their decisions.
Right, because their actions have real-world consequences. It's not just a show.
Exactly. So this heightened drama isn't random, according to the source. It's a direct result of this Jupiter transit hitting their relationship's core.
Okay, so if that's the cause of the current intensity, what does the source predict happens next? Where does their connection go from here based on this astrological view?
Well, the analysis is pretty clear that the current drama isn't, accidental. It's seen as a result of a specific constellation of planetary energies.
Okay.
It describes the dynamic as Musk being currently activated primarily by Trump, not so much the rest of the world right now. And Trump is acting like lightning, attracting Musk's own unpredictable energy, that Uranus wildcard we talked about.
So Trump is kind of the trigger for Musk's unpredictability right now.
That's the dynamic described. And then the analysis makes a very definitive statement about the future of their relationship.
Okay, what is it?
It states quite plainly, the romance between these two men is now over.
The romance is over. Wow, that's blunt. A strong conclusion from this astrological reading.
It is. But it comes with a really important caveat, though.
Which is?
The source's view is that they may pretend to reconcile on the surface, but, and this is key, it won't be genuine, only for show.
Ah, so any making up we might see is just optics, performance, according to this analysis.
That's exactly the interpretation presented here. The source also adds that both can cause significant damage to each other.
Damage each other.
Yes, and that real reconciliation is no longer on the agenda.
No real reconciliation possible. That paints a pretty stark picture of the dynamic going forward, as seen through this lens. Does the source give any time frame for this specific period of intense drama to cool down?
It does provide a window. The analysis suggests this particular peak intensity should be resolved by the 19th, by the 21st of June this year at the latest.
Okay, so a specific time frame, just around the corner from when the source was written, for this current peak drama to potentially pass, according to this view.
Yes, for this specific Jupiter-driven phase.
And the source offers some advice for people watching this, particularly if they are, quote, astrologically educated.
It does. The advice offered is basically, maintain calm, do not succumb to provocations, and watch this battle of titans from a distance.
Watch from a distance. That might be good advice for anyone watching, really, regardless of their take on astrology.
Probably wise, yes.
Looking ahead, beyond this immediate June window, does the source project anything else, particularly for Musk?
It does look a bit further. The analysis suggests expecting further significant developments, especially around the beginning of July.
Beginning of July? Why then?
That's when, according to the source, Jupiter reaches Musk's own ascendant and sun in his individual birth chart.
So Jupiter moves on to activate his personal chart more directly.
Right. And the source says this transit suggests further significant steps and statements can be expected from Musk around that time.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? Seeing this very public, very high-profile dynamic interpreted through this completely different framework of planets and charts as this source presents it.
It really is. And, while the astrological perspective itself is certainly unique, the source keeps reiterating that its significance isn't just celestial mechanics. It matters because these are two individuals with such considerable influence on, well, millions of lives.
Absolutely. Which leads directly to the source's final, rather blunt observation, doesn't it?
It does. The analysis kind of wraps up with the thought, it's not a good picture when those responsible for the world behave like small children.
Behave like small children. Oof. That's a pointed critique woven into the astrological reading.
It is, and the source leaves the reader with one final hope.
Which is?
That they soon come to their senses.
A hope for maybe a bit more maturity, a less dramatic dynamic, especially given their global influence. That definitely gives you something to think about, whether you follow astrology or just follow the news. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, exploring this really unique perspective on a very complex and powerful relationship. Hopefully it gives you, our listener, another way to maybe consider the dynamics at play.